welcome back to Bookmark Chronicles. Today I am doing my May wrap-up. We are almost halfway through the year, fuck. I'm like dreading my goals check-in because I don't know if I've been doing well. I haven't been tracking it and I probably should have, but I guess we'll find out soon. The first book that I read this month was Freedom is a Constant Struggle by Angela Davis. This was my recommendation from Rachel for my 12 Recs by 12 Friends. 5 stars. I mean, it's Angela Davis. It's damn near impossible to give her anything lower than that, but I really liked the conversations that she had about Ferguson and Palestine and how that relates to so many other things. And this book is a collection of speeches that she's given in different places, but I listened to the audio because she narrates it herself, which I highly recommend, and it was great. It was just great. I have a copy of Our Prison's Obsolete in my library of Black literature, so I'm really hoping that I can pick that up soon. If you have not read this yet, I highly recommend it. It's so important. And I learned a few things that, for obvious reasons, aren't being advertised, but I didn't know that Nelson Mandela was on the US terrorist list until 2008 or some shit. That's fucking wild. But the US government is pretty fucked, so I'm not surprised. Anywho, highly recommend Freedom is a Constant Struggle or anything by Angela Davis. So far, this is only my second read by her, but I will definitely be changing that soon. The next book that I read was Ring Shout. This was the recommendation that I got from Jess from my 12 Recs by 12 Friends, and I really enjoyed this one. I rated it 4 stars. I listened to the audio, and in this one, I guess it's considered a historical fantasy. It does take place in a historical setting, and while the KKK is a real thing, within the story, there are monsters called Ku Kluxes that our main characters are hunting, and it's very well done. Very well done. I really enjoyed the characters. There's one character. I knew it was gonna happen, but still. Anyway, highly recommend this. It was very good, and this is actually my first read by P. Djeli Clark. I know I do want to read more by this author, and I will. I think I have a couple books in the library of Black literature too, so I kind of don't have an excuse, but I will get to them soon. But anyway, definitely recommend Ring Shout if you've not read it yet. The next book that I read was 56 Days. This is a pandemic murder mystery, if that makes sense. So we're following 2 characters who met shortly before quarantine started. This takes place in Ireland. They meet before quarantine, they end up quarantining together. Nobody knows that the 2 of them are together, and then one of them ends up dead. So we're flipping between timelines of this couple meeting and when a body is found, and the pieces are coming together very slowly. I ended up listening to the audio of this because the beginning was slow and I really couldn't get into it, reading it physically. It did get better. I ended up rating it 3.5 stars. I am someone who really enjoys multiple perspectives. However, when we've seen something or had a conversation in one person's point of view and then we switch to a different point of view and the same conversation is repeated, that really annoys me, and that happened quite a few times in here. On top of that, like I said, it was slow to get into, and then while I enjoyed the ending, it was a little predictable. I would still recommend it if you're interested and if it sounds interesting to you, but 3.5 stars. Next, I read The Right Swipe by Alicia Rai. I did a blended read of this with the physical copy and the audio. I liked this. I wasn't sure how I was gonna feel about it, but I like it. In this, we're following Rhiannon, who is the CEO of this dating app thing, right? So there's this guy that she met once upon a time. They were supposed to meet again. He stood her up, and then she ends up seeing him somewhere else in a professional setting. He's working for one of the rival companies that she actually wants to buy. So they're figuring out their feelings for each other while having to address what happened, why he stood her up, what was going on, how she feels about that. She's very guarded, obviously, doesn't trust him because he's betrayed her trust once before, but also having to work with each other in a professional setting and navigating that. So I guess you could sort of call it a workplace romance. I don't know if that's how that works, but either way, I enjoyed it. I gave it 4.5 stars. I will definitely be continuing this series. If you have read the other 2 books in the series, please let me know. I made a TikTok talking about this because I wanted to know if other people had read the rest of the series. I honestly have not seen anyone talk about any more than just this book, but I am really excited to continue. I think it's going to be good. The second book, I think, is about her best friend Katrina, and then the third book is about one of their friends, I think. Really like this, really like the characters. I like both Rhiannon and Samson, and I like the rep in here. Rhiannon is Black and Samson is Samoan, so I really enjoyed that. Highly recommend if you're into contemporary romances. Quick honorable mention for The Jasmine Throne. As I've mentioned a few times before, I am a co-host of the Pages in Color book club, which focuses on reading diverse fantasies. We are currently reading The Jasmine Throne over this quarter from May to July. So we read the first third of the book from the prologue through chapter 23 in May. Really enjoyed the first part of this book. I have to admit that it was actually quite hard to stop at that point. I'm really enjoying this. I cannot wait to see what happens. I'm gonna buy the second one. No question. Only a third of the way through, but I already know that I need to know what happens. So can't really say I recommend it because I haven't finished it yet, but I think that I am going to enjoy it. If you would like to join our book club, it's not too late. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Discord, and all of that information will be linked in the description as always. The next book that I read was Born Darkly by Trisha Wolfe. This is the first in the Darkly Madly duet, I think it's called. This book is available on Kindle Unlimited if you are interested. It's about a serial killer who falls in love with his therapist. It was okay. I ended up rating this 2.75 stars, which is basically a low 3 in my rating scale. And what I mean by that is it was okay. There was a lot of potential, and I just didn't like the direction that it went in. I didn't find the romance believable, to be totally honest. I don't feel like we spent enough time with the characters together for them to develop these so-called feelings that they had for each other. And a lot of the things that the love interest said, the serial killer, it was supposed to be sexy and it wasn't. It was really cringy, honestly. Tons of content warnings for this one. We're obviously talking about a serial killer. So there is murder and torture, as well as some other things that I'll try to remember to list for you in the description. I didn't find it believable. I didn't like the ending, and I will not be reading the second book. If you have read the second book, please tell me what happens. I really do want to know, because the ending of the first book was slightly intriguing, but not enough for me to keep going. And if you are planning to read this for the smut, I've heard the second book is steamy, but this one is a slow burn. Slow burn. Every time you think they're gonna fuck, they don't. So just in case you're going into it for that, it's not gonna happen when you think it's gonna happen. But yeah, I won't be continuing the series. But again, if you have read Born Madly, please tell me what happens. I just want to know. And the last book that I read this month was Hood Feminism by Mikki Kendall. I really enjoyed this. I have wanted to read this since I read Women, Race, and Class by Angela Davis last year, and I'm so glad that I finally got to it. This was on like my September TBR. Plus this book was a gift to me from Dasher, so I'm really glad that I finally got to it. I tabbed it up. I don't know if you can, there we go. I tabbed it up quite a bit. I really enjoyed it. I have tons of annotations and whatnot, and I think this is a book that I could potentially reread at some point. I think it's like the second chapter talks about gun violence, which, living in the States right now, gun violence is a constant conversation, especially when we are having mass shootings damn near every other day. So that was rough, but also timely. And I think that all of the topics in here were covered very well. So this is obviously nonfiction. It is very informative, but is also a little autobiographical. And Mikki Kendall relates certain topics to her life and talks about how mainstream feminism still fails to be inclusive. So I am definitely going to reread this at some point. Highly recommend if you have not read it already, and I'm really excited about reading this now because I will be reading Misogynoir Transformed later in the year for another one of Rachel's discussions, and I'm really excited to get to that and see how it compares to both Hood Feminism and Women, Race, and Class, and highly recommend if you haven't read it already. Really glad that I finally got to this. So those are all the books that I read in May. Let me know if you have read any of these or if they are on your TBR. Otherwise, that's all I have for you today, and I'll see you in the next video.